what's up, guys? So, Fire Emblem Warriors is coming out pretty soon. I think in Japan it's coming out at the end of September. In America and Europe, I believe it's coming out at the end of October, a week before Mario and Odyssey launches. So here's the situation with Fire Emblem Warriors. A lot of the Fire Emblem fan base was pretty open to the idea of this game, but there's been like a lot of small issues that are really bothering people, and it's primarily doing with the roster. The first issue is that this game is primarily taking its characters away from Fates, Awakening, and Shadow Dragon. The second problem is that like we've only seen one character from Shadow Dragon, and every other reveal has been either a Awakening character or a Fates character. And lately, it's been a whole bunch of Fates, with our last Awakening character being Cordelia. And I know a lot of people are still mad and angry about where's Hector, where's Ike, where's Lynn, where's Erica, where's Roy, where's Eliwood. Okay, maybe not, people aren't really concerned about Roy. It's amazing how that character got into Smash Brothers, and then you look into the fan base and realize that a lot of people don't really care for Roy because he's like one of the weakest lords in the series. Wow, that's it's pretty depressing, all things considered. But the one thing I think people aren't really talking about this game, and to me the game's biggest problem, isn't the fact that it isn't pulling from every Fire Emblem game in the history of Fire Emblem games. Because I understand, because the thing is that with like Hyrule Warriors, you could do that. Because Hyrule Warriors, for the most part, Zelda in general, I mean, doesn't have a huge cast to pick from. It feels like it over the amount of games that exist. But for the most part, the core characters that people were like have to be in the game, you didn't have a lot to pick from. And then even then, half of those characters ended up coming into the 3DS game that became pretty much DLC. So I'm not super surprised that the roster's already feeling pretty limited. I mean, for God's sakes, we currently have 19 characters revealed, and we only have, out of those 19, I think we only have one Shadow Dragon character, and I think Fates currently has like 9 or 10 characters revealed. That's if you include Sakura, which you might as well, because for those who don't know, they recently announced Elise, and it was like, okay, when you did the trailer before that announced everybody, you know, Camilla, Hinoka, Takumi, Leo, you're like, okay, well, the healer sisters aren't here. So I'm guessing that they're not going to be in the game. Oh no, we're just saving them for later, as if it's a surprise, which gets into my major criticism of Fire Emblem Warriors. It's not that the roster's only borrowing from a few games. It's the fact that they're picking the most boring fucking characters to pick. And some of you would say, but it's been pretty diverse, and to be fair, they have. I mean, we've had Wyvern Riders, Pegasus Riders, Archers, sword wielders, a lot of sword wielders actually, lance users, I mean magic users. I mean we've gotten a pretty good variety of characters. But when I say boring, I'm not talking in terms of variety of weapons. When I say boring, I'm talking about, do people think that the only characters people like from Fates and Awakening are like all the main characters? Because they're not. Knowing that this cast was going to be limited to begin with, and knowing that this game is pretty much built for DLC, I thought it would make the most sense, and personally would have been way more entertaining and exciting, because the game already has a bunch of knocks against it just purely on the rosters they're going with, which is the 3 games, 2 of which aren't like that much, even though they both have very redeeming qualities. Whether or not you care for those redeeming qualities is a personal thing. But on top of that, and the fact that its release date is insanely close to Mario Odyssey, which almost hurts, which in a way could hurt the game in terms of sales, because who the fuck wants to pick up 2 $60 games in the same week? But that's not 100% fair, because it's coming out like a month earlier in Japan, so it may not get cannibalized as much. But the one thing that to me that really hurts the most is this roster. Because we know we're not going to get every Fates character and every Awakening character and every Shadow Dragon character. So why in the fuck would you pick only Lords? It's literally like only Lords are plot important characters. And because of the way Fates' story and characters are set up, there's like 8 or 9 important characters in Fates just through the main story alone. And you're just like, so every retainer that I might have liked I'm not gonna see. Now, granted, Awakening has a little bit more of a pool, like has more of a gap for interesting characters because not all the main characters don't take up all fucking 10 or so slots that each franchise seems to be getting. At least I think. That all depends on how big, what characters from Shadow Dragon we get. But I'm banking we're getting about 10 characters per franchise. In which case, things are going to get pretty fucking annoying really quick. But I think the reason why this bothers me the most, probably with Fates, is because Fates has other characters that people like. And because you've limited the entire cast of Fates' representation to be all the royal characters, it's like, so we don't get Arthur, we don't get Effie, we don't get Charlotte, we don't get Benny, we don't get Setsuna, we don't get Azama, we don't get any of the side of the retainers who would have been cool to play with. Instead, we get fucking Camilla, Takumi, Hinoka, all the fucking royals. Now, obviously, because we have the shepherds, we're more likely going to see characters like Stahl and Sully and Varian and Vake, the mighty Vake, ladies and gentlemen. And that'll be cool. And obviously, Tharja. I didn't forget Tharja. It's just that it's kind of a given at this point. But then again, at this point, we'll see. You know, they could make another fucking stupid decision. Hell, we haven't even seen Sumiya yet. How the fuck does Cordelia get announced before Sumiya does? When Sumiya is implied to be his Crom's canon wife. It's just disappointing because you could have had more interesting characters represent these same weapon types. Why didn't you mix this up with characters who were super well known in the Fates and Awakening games and the characters who aren't as well known so they could get some shine on? I understand the game is fan service and I recognize that everybody, people, if nothing else, even if you don't necessarily like the characters, you like their appearances. I understand Camilla and Leo and Xander and Ryoma all have their fan bases. But it would have made this game a lot more interesting and compelling when you see characters that look really off the wall. And here's my suggestion, because I'm not the kind of guy that just fucking says some shit and not offer some type of fix. What you should have done is pick certain royals and then pick their retainers as other characters. So for example, and I'm going to do this because I'm biased, I would have chose, if you're going to check, you know, a Pegasus Knight, you pick Hinoka, and then you pick Azama and Setsuna, because Setsuna is your bow character, and Azama is your healer. Especially because I think he can get upgraded to being a war cleric, so you could have had him use axes in his combos, the same way you have Lissa using them in her combos. So it wouldn't have hurt anything to have that sense of variety. And hell, you could have mixed and matched retainers so we saw other characters. For example, maybe you didn't want a situation with Leo, Odin, and Niles where you essentially have two dark mages, one's just not on a horse. You could have switched out one of those dark mages for Nyx, another character people like, but once again, isn't a fucking retainer character, so she doesn't get that much shine, on top of the fact that this game only seems to be picking main characters. You could have picked some of these more non-important characters like Kellum or Donald. Characters that you didn't use much or didn't get that much representation. It makes it even worse because some of the kid characters aren't even here. I would have thought we were seeing a Ningo or fucking Owain or fucking Severa at this point. We haven't even seen those guys. But you said, you know what we should do? We should keep hinting Anna, who more than likely isn't going to be playable. She'll just be a shopkeeper, which is a reference. But the only non-royal or plot important character we've seen in this entire game is Cordelia, which is fucking stupid considering Cordelia's whole gag in Awakening was that she had this insane unrequited love for Crom, but his fucking wife isn't in the game. Although I guess technically Sumiya isn't canon, so I guess that makes sense. But like, my point is that this shit's boring. It's boring to pick all the safest bet characters. You should have taken a risk. That's what makes this shit interesting. Even Hyrule Warriors pick characters that seemed a little off the wall. I mean, most people were hoping for Link and their Zeldas and your Ganons and some of the villains from the other games like Skyward Sword and shit. And maybe we thought we'd get the companion characters like Fi and Midna. Skull Kid kind of came out of left field. Even, you know, Daruma and Princess Ruto. Those were a little off the wall. And it's just like, it feels like this game is picking all the safest bet characters, and if I want anything interested, you better buy the season pass, and that really rubs me the wrong way, because I don't know about you, but I'm not in love with every fucking royal in the game. I think the only ones I really would want to play as Alyssa, just because she looks different and I think she would be fun. Because that's the other problem. Because they're all royals, they don't have their goofiness or unique fighting styles. Think about it. The way Zant plays in Hyrule Warriors is a lot more interesting than like any of the characters in this game currently we have in Fire Emblem play. That actually, the kookiness of Fates would have totally worked for this game. You could have had someone like Perry in this bitch. A fucking crazy psychopath who has like the mind of a 5-year-old. That would have totally worked. Because it would have been entertaining to see all of her animations and her voice acting. The closest we got for that is Camilla, who's insanely been toned down. So instead of being a fucking psychopath, she's more of like a sexy big sister, which, I mean, to be fair, that was a part of her character to begin with. But it's just fucking disappointing. And I think that's really what's hurting this game more than anything else. Is that even within the 3 games that you pick, you're still picking the safest characters. They're like insanely safe. Like part of the reason why Tharja is so liked is because she hits that weird mix between being a crazy ass yandere and also fine as fuck. And Camilla, perfectly cool. I wouldn't mind some of the roles. I think honestly what you should have done is you should have maybe have kept Ryoma and Xander, gave us Hinoka and Camilla, and left the other ones out. Because then we could have had some more interesting retainers or just character interactions that, although would have seemed like what the fuck choices, would have made for fun interactions in those little support conversations we'll have in this game. Which actually at this point makes me look more forward to Shadow Dragon's representation than anything else. Shadow Dragon is innately more interesting to me because because at least with Shadow Dragon I've never played the game, so I can look forward to all the characters they'll pick. Whereas in fucking, so far as the Fates and Awakening representation, it's a whole bunch of characters I know, and because I've played the games, I know there are better characters you could have picked, or at least more interesting characters. The anime kookiness of Fates' cast would have... Who the fuck says they wouldn't have wanted to see Arthur? Arthur may be pretty one note in his game, but he would have had the funniest fucking animations in this goddamn game. He would have been running around throwing his sword and at the end of his combos accidentally dropped the sword on himself. You know, it's that kind of kooky shit that would have totally worked for this game. Instead, you pick the basic ass, I guess, Camilla. Camilla's like the most interesting we have. Because she'll be very sexual about all of her attacks. And it's not, and ironically enough, there's more boob physics in Fates' game than there is in Fire Emblem Warriors for Camilla. Which is wow. It's just fucking wow at this point. So the biggest fucking travesty that this game is suffering, it's just that it's lacking variety in its cast. Especially considering we have an overabundance. Well, it feels like it, but we still have a slight overabundance of swords. Which is a fucking problem. Because your main characters, Chrom, Xander, Ryoma, it's one of these games that honestly would make me sit back and go, I really hope they make a sequel to it, because the first game doesn't look that interesting. The sad thing is that the first game has to sell to justify making a sequel to it. So it's a lose-lose situation, folks. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys for watching. This has been your boy Terrell, and I'll catch you guys later. Life's a game. Play to win. Peace out.